Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind, A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today we've got the full squad: Natasha Meikle, Laura Bradburn, Russell Boyce and Lawrence Haggerty. And we're here tonight, it's an ACSOM special. Lawrence Connolly and Tony Haggerty. Oh, seriously.
Good start.
It's a good start. You start as you mean to go on, and just wait till we get to the team lines. We're here. We're going to give you an impromptu ACSOM bulletin. We're going to talk about tonight's big game between Celtic and Hibs. And there's a few other topics to discuss. But before we do all that, Lawrence Connolly, you have the team news for tonight's game. What changes have been made since the Rangers game?
Teagarden's missing out. Maybe Rangers game is her second game back after a year out. Maybe due to some of the heavy treatment she endured during that game. Obviously, the goal scorer Mariah Lee starts. Jacinta Galabadarachichi is back.
Yes.
It's one of the stars of the show.
Lawrence, I can't even get your name right, mate. So well done.
And Katie Nicholson's back in defence. So strong line-up, mate.
Oh, absolutely.
Well done in pronouncing Nicholson properly. That was good.
Welcome to the show, Francie W. You have been supporting ACSOM all year, and you're tuning in for the women's game this evening. Obviously, that's the main focus, and we'll also talk about other news involving Celtic. I was surprised also to see Teagarden bench. Laura, you're joining us for the first time to cover the women's game. You done your research, and you were just saying before we went live that she certainly had impressed you.
Yeah, I mean, I said to you before when you asked me to come on, I was a bit reluctant because, to be honest, I've never watched the Celtic women's team. I've dipped in and out of the women's game, but to me it comes across like a completely different sport. So you have to kind of a different eye for it because I think it is played very differently, different pace, different tactics, that kind of thing. So it's something that's going to have a steep learning curve, certainly. But I watched a couple of the 5-1 win over Spartans. I watched the highlights of that and watched the highlights of the Rangers game, obviously. And Teagarden was standout for me. She just seemed to be like a great engine between the midfield and the front. And I was surprised to learn that she had been out with the ACL, or I think it was an ACL anyway, but that she'd been out for that length of time and that she was only just back because she looked like one of the fittest, sharpest players in the team.
Definitely. Now, Natasha, the other player we spoke about, we were waxing lyrical about Chloe Warrington as well, who starts tonight. And it's a big game because Celtic are now really pushing for that Champions League spot, the second Champions League spot, if indeed they're not going for the league title. So, I mean, what are you expecting from Fran Alonso's girls tonight?
I think it'll be a tough game, to be honest. Hibs, although they're not one of the top three who are really sort of battling it out for the Champions League spots and the league title spot, Hibs are a good side. Their last couple of results, they've been narrowly beaten by the other two of the top three in Glasgow City and Rangers, losing 2-1 and 1-0 respectively. And these have been tight games. And by all accounts, Hibs have been very unlucky not to get anything from either game. So from a Hibs perspective, if they've had these three tough games in a row, if they've had Rangers, Glasgow City, Celtic, that's a tough fixture list. They're 2/3 of the way through and they've not managed to pick up any points despite coming really close. This is their opportunity to sort of, put the hard work of those two games into practice and get something from the game. So I really expect to see Hibs coming out strongly, positively, and trying to win the game. But from a Celtic perspective, it's really important that we defend as solidly as we did against Rangers and don't let that happen. There's no point doing all that hard work, riding our luck at times, to be fair, and securing the win and the 3 points against Rangers, only to undo that hard work today against Hibs. So this is a really important fixture for the girls to sort of consolidate that win against Rangers and push towards that Champions League spot, bearing in mind that in a couple of weeks' time, Rangers and Glasgow City actually play each other. So one or both of them is going to drop points. We need to win this game to make sure we're in a position to capitalise on that in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely. Now, Russell, the messages have started coming in for yourself. We know you've got a huge amount of fans online after appearing on not only A Celtic State of Mind, but overseas television as well, Russell. Alfred Nobel is looking forward to seeing the match in hopes that Russell gets lots of cheering in. How are you feeling about tonight? I mean, when Natasha's talking about Champions League football, and you'd hope that by the time that comes round for the women's game next season, we'll all be able to actually go and support them in person. How great would that be?
It'd be amazing. It'd be absolutely amazing. I'm fully on the women's team bus, Paul. That's right. I have developed another bus this weekend, mate.
Yes.
The Celtic women's team bus, and I'm going to let Fran Alonso drive this one because he impressed me so much midweek. But I think what Natasha was saying is absolutely right. There's no point in beating Rangers midweek in the manner that we did, where we did ride the luck at times, but we dug in, we put in 100,000,000% effort. It was an amazing display of passion, fight, desire, all those sort of Stephen Presley sound bites, and I think you've got to then completely, like you say, consolidate it and make sure you then beat a team that, albeit are one of the stronger teams in the league, that are still not part of that full-time top three. Do you know what I mean? Or I don't know if Glasgow City are actually full-time, I don't know. But obviously they are like the elite sort of three clubs. So I think when you're playing a team that's outside that and you've just beaten your rivals midweek, you've got to then and I think as well there'll be a huge confidence going through that team. You only need to see how they united after the game. They very much strike me as a squad and a management team pulled in the same direction, and that is very refreshing to see at Celtic Park.
We're getting some good comments coming in. Liam Reid, come on the girls, with the obligatory H, obviously after the G. Mailey's boys, what time are the ladies kicking off? It's 10 past and it's live on BBC Alba. So 10 past, we are going to be your pre-match bulletin for about half an hour leading up to that. There's a few other topics. It's a Celtic broadcast, so we can talk about the women's game, we can talk about the men's game, anything Celtic related, and we will discuss that. And another good query coming in from Plixie Plocks. Will pre-grade, you see, I got off to a bad start by calling Lawrence Haggerty, and now it's all gone. Will pre-game bulletins be a norm for the girls going forward? Well, as often as we can possibly cover the game, we certainly will do that, obviously with clashing fixtures, etc. We might even have two bulletins if there's a clash of fixtures, Natasha, in the future.
Absolutely.
I know we chose to go with the women's game against Rangers on Wednesday there, but moving forward, it would be brilliant to cover both teams. Absolutely, 100% be up for that. And yeah, as I was saying before, there are a few other stories to cover in the world of Celtic before I come to Russell Way's Mourinho boss, because I don't think I've discussed this with you, Russell. Lawrence, are you looking forward to seeing Mariah Lee start tonight? Because obviously we were very impressed with her winning goal on Wednesday night.
Yeah, definitely. She showed a good turn of pace, good composure. Hopefully, Fran's going to go two up top. I don't think we need to sit as deep as we did against Rangers. So I think we'll see a more attacking Celtic side. And definitely the goal hero, the Glasgow Derby goal hero. Let's hope she gets another one or two.
Now, as I say, there's plenty to discuss. Let's start off with Jose Mourinho. Now, obviously, this story was always going to break, wasn't it, Russell? It was always going to end up on the who next for the Celtic manager list. I'm actually very confident that Eddie Howe is going to be announced very shortly as the Celtic manager. But the story, it's always going to get the clicks, isn't it? It's always going to get people putting on the bets. You wonder why the story's breaking, how much truth is in it. I think it's a non-starter. What's your thoughts, Russell?
I think it's extremely unlikely. I think it is extremely unlikely, but I just feel that, if there's someone like that available, and obviously there's been a couple of sort of different scripts getting written for the Eddie Howe delayed decision, and obviously we're not party to what they are, but one of them was that it was him that was stalling with perhaps his eye at Crystal Palace or Newcastle or any other EPL job that became available. For me, if that was the case, you call his bluff and you ask someone like Jose Mourinho when they're available. The flip side could be Eddie Howe's doing exactly what we wished Neil Lennon had done when he was offered the job, as much as we didn't want Lennon to get offered the job, by the way. I'm just saying, when he did get offered the job, you would like to have thought he would have pushed back on accepting that, unless he got his own men in his team. It was disappointing that Lennon ended up in there on his own, and eventually, ultimately, I don't think did him any favours in the role over the 18 months that he was in charge, or 20 months, whatever it was. I think for Jose Mourinho, though, is a candidate that's available right now, which he obviously is, and there is to be any doubt about the Howe deal, then you have to make that phone call. I mean, we talk about acting like a big club again. Act like a big club and ask him if he wants upwards of £8 million a year. I mean, obviously it's going to be a complete non-starter, but you've got to think as well. I say this about managers all the time. The management wage structure that Celtic have, whatever that limit is, that ceiling is, probably could always be increased slightly. I mean, you only need to think of 4 or 5 names from that squad's combined weekly wage, and you think, wow, take those idiots who've contributed nothing this season out that squad, and there's one heck of a chunk you could add on top of the already, say, I don't know, say 30, 40,000 they've got put away for, the next managerial appointment. So, yeah, it's unrealistic, completely unrealistic, but he would be my absolute number one. I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, I would take him in a heartbeat. He would unite the fan base straight away. I know you'd cause division eventually down the line, but so what? It'd be amazing.
Eventually.
I don't think he'd unite the fan base at all, Russell. I'm going to have to come in and disagree with you there. I did a wee poll when his name started getting thrown about to see what the fan opinion on him would be, whether they would take him as next manager. Somewhere in the region of 5,000 votes, and 52% said yes, 48% said no. And honestly, time and time again, we're getting Seville coming back up. People have long memories, so I'm not sure he's entirely one to unite the fan base. But the point I do agree with you on is that it's completely unrealistic. I don't think Josie will be at Celtic Park.
No.
Unless he has an opposition manager at any time in the future.
Twitter votes are all good, right? But the only thing I would say, right, I'm telling you, if he was appointed, that'd be the fastest season ticket sales you would get, faster than Eddie Howe, 100%. He's box office, that's what happens.
He's a megabus. He's a megabus for us, wasn't he?
He's a megabus, Lawrence, you know it.
You're talking there, Natasha, about Celtic fans with lengthy memories, and you're absolutely right. Now, not last January, the January before, Kevin and I were invited along to this Soccer Sixes event at the Hydro, it was, right? In fact, I've lost a year. It was actually 3 Januaries ago. And there was a rest of the world team. I mean, the lineups were absolutely tremendous. Scotland had a team. It was all ex-pros. There was a rest of the world team, and Van Hooijdonk was playing for them, and various other incredible talents. But Vitor Baia was the goalkeeper, and we were offered an interview with him. So we had access all areas to interview whoever we wanted. And Kevin Graham said, no, I can't be part of ACSOM if you agree to this interview. And so I think there's a lot of fans out there who probably share Kevin's views on this one. It would be interesting, but I mean, it brings up the Eddie Howe. What do we know about the deal? We know he's been offered the job. We know that there's a big issue in relation to not just a director of football or technical director, but the whole group of staff. Like you say, Russell, you kind of think, well, fair play to you, because why would you possibly operate under the same restrictions as Neil Lennon, to give Neil Lennon some credit, as Neil Lennon was operating under this season, and obviously last season as well, because when it all unravels and you're looking for that support and people are second guessing you, etc., because that's part of your team, that's not there. So we understand that there's a huge amount of staff. I remember reading a report some time ago. This gives you an idea of the kind of staff we might be talking about here. I remember reading a story about Sam Allardyce and the fact that, he had 17 members of staff. I mean, that was everything from dietitians to obviously coaches and, all these people who were part of his team. They needed a boss, Russell. And I think that Eddie Howe might not be as many as 17, but the thinking is when you look at Bournemouth, and obviously they're promotion chasing Bournemouth, and Jonathan Woodgate was in the news recently talking about Celtic, but some of the staff we're talking about will still be employed at Bournemouth, won't they? So I mean, if you're looking at the investment in Eddie Howe, you're also investing in numerous other members of staff as well. Laura, I'm going to come over to you, and if you're thinking about the fact that Eddie Howe himself will be on a big wage, let's say he's got another half a dozen or 8 members of staff he wants to bring with him. Celtic really aren't in a good kind of bargaining position to say, well, we'll go elsewhere, because we really need this appointment. I believe at this moment in time, Eddie Howe's the man we need to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember joining back in December, long before Neil Lennon was sacked, and saying that Eddie Howe would be my first choice, not only because I rate him as a manager, but because I think he is that perfect balance between the quality that we can get and the realistic chances we can get. I understand Russell's point about, you know, if Mourinho's out there, you ask him the question. Again, to go back to what Jim has said before when we've spoke about Ralph Rangnick, if you ask people of these calibre the question, if they then say, well, it's not for me, but I can recommend somebody to you, then all the better for it. But to go back to Eddie Howe, I don't think you can afford to make the appointment just with him and not get the coaching staff on board, because he will always feel hamstrung if that's the case. If he was, I personally, from what I've seen of him, I don't think he would take the job without getting the staff in. But if on the off chance that he did take the appointment and came in without the staff that he had requested, he would feel on the back foot from the word go, I think, and you would be in a situation where either he felt he couldn't give the best out of himself because he didn't have the means to do it, or because he just felt like relationships started off on the wrong foot. So yeah, it's got to be all or nothing, I think.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back actually there where I had a wee faux pas when I was introducing Lawrence, and Russell supported me by just kind of rocking back and forward and laughing at me. So thanks for that, Russell. It's great to know that we're all in this together when somebody's having an off night. Brilliant.
There is a question about staff.
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke because he kept going on about Anthony and the last show, because he kept talking about commitment. I thought it was a play on words.
Listen, I'll give you a better one. Somebody on Twitter got me and Russell mixed up the other night, so you're all right.
Excellent.
Twitter can be an interesting place, that's for sure. Now, on Friday, we did get an opportunity just before Laura's bulletin at 12:30 with Anthony and Jim. We got an opportunity to speak to David Lowe. It was a good conversation. Unfortunately, there was a few connection issues at David's end, which was part of a wider Wi-Fi problem in his area in Glasgow. But this is kind of like in the lead up, Natasha, to quite a big event that's happening next week, and it's an event that you've done a bit of work on, thankfully, to bring it to the ACSOM table. Tell us a wee bit about what's happening on Wednesday night.
So Wednesday night, we've got the guys from Celtic Trust and Celtic Shared coming along to host what's really a town hall type event on a virtual platform. Really what they're there to do is to answer questions on the share proposal, which I'm sure everyone's heard about. And if not, go to Celtic Shared and have a read about it on Twitter. So they're there to answer questions. We're hosting it, which is excellent that we're able to do so. And they've invited along other representatives from fan media and other organisations to come and ask them questions about the share proposal. It's very difficult to have these debates over social media methods such as Twitter with the character limitation. And people have questions, people have queries, and people have concerns, and they recognise that, and they want to be able to engage with these people and answer them, but properly and sufficiently, not over a social media platform. So having this town hall type event where they will be there to take questions, respond to them, no holds barred, really is a great way of getting more information about the share proposal out there and hopefully alleviating any queries or concerns that anyone might have. So tune in, that'll be on Wednesday the 28th, live on all our usual social media channels. If you've got any questions that you think you would like raised, then be sure to let us know on our social media accounts. But otherwise, tune in and hear what the guys have to say. It'll be really interesting, that's for sure.
It is. It's a real coming together. I mean, we've seen some of the potential back in December, what actually happens when Celtic fan groups, Celtic media groups come together and for the greater good, either of the club or for charity, as it was in December, using the kind of technology that obviously it was always out there, but we've been using it far more often during the lockdown. I'm pretty sure it'll continue to be used in a big way post-lockdown, but pulling that all together on Wednesday night on a Celtic state of mind, and it will allow anybody to get involved with questions, comments, and we'll be able to chair that, or host rather, that discussion on A Celtic State of Mind. So fair play to yourself, Natasha, for putting some work into making that happen. And it's going to be very interesting from my end to hear what everybody is saying now. There's plenty more happening at Celtic at the moment. And one of the interesting things that happened earlier today, there's so much information flying about that you miss, unfortunately, important articles, etc. And Joe Bloggs City on Twitter brought to my attention today, Joe Bloggs City of the Celtic Wiki fame, brought to my attention a very interesting article that had gone well under my radar, and it was from a user called Frankie Bonfanti, who had been following, and I am following, but I'd missed this article that he had written, and it was all around a partnership deal that Celtic had done some time ago. I think the article itself was written around about December time. So the first thing I would say to anyone listening is go and check it out, because it's very concerning, actually. Natasha, did you get a chance to read through the article yourself? We've actually invited Frankie onto one of the bulletins next week. And then obviously we'll be able to go through his findings, and this is all around, it's called an opinion piece, Celtic standards are slipping on and off the pitch. What was your main concern having read through that article from Frankie?
I just thought it was a bit of a strange partnership that seems to have flown under the radar. And when something flies under the radar, there is a reason it has flown under the radar. So really, Celtic have, partnered up with this Chinese company who seem to specialise in video technology and, slightly more concerningly, surveillance. My concern is with the company itself, firstly. This is a company that have been blacklisted by the US Department of Commerce over their role in human rights violations. Apparently a serious issue with their workers over there, which can't be taken too lightly. The fact that Celtic are partnering with a company with this reputation concerns me. Have we not done our due diligence into this company, or have we done it and decided we don't care, which would be an example of the club not living up to the standards it promotes. Concerning, maybe we're looking too much into it. They're seeing it as some sort of video deal where Celtic are going to apparently have video walls in the Superstore and drones filming at Lennoxtown to help with that sort of thing. Or, are the club putting technology in place to have closer surveillance of the fans? Who knows? And why are we partnering with such a company? Many unanswered questions. And why has it flown under the radar?
No, I know, and as I say, I'm going to try and get Frankie onto the show so we can speak in some detail. Something's tickling Laura's fancy here. I'm not sure if it's...
I'm just checking around the room to see if there's any cameras or anything I've not noticed.
Well, the big thing, Laura, about that is you'll remember the focus, even the focus group, the Police Scotland's focus group, taking cameras in to film supporters, and the Green Brigade were very vocal against that, because obviously we were looking at our human rights, and you were told that you're always under surveillance in a football stadium anyway because there's CCTV. But when the police started walking around the edges of football parks with cameraed up and looking at so-called risk fans, but if you're standing next to them, Russell, you're also being recorded. It seemed very much like a violation of your human rights, and so there are quite a lot of concerns around about this deal. But I would need to thank once again Joe Bloggs City for bringing it to our attention. We'll all have a good read of it. We would advise everybody else out there to do the same. And I know that David Lowe, who was on the show on Friday, is going to discuss it with the Celtic Trust members as well, to see if they can actually raise it with the club. So it all ties in, and we will try and get Frankie on for some more information about it. Now, we're talking about a deal potentially, Natasha, that would have had some kind of involvement from Peter Lawwell, and we are expecting Mr. Lawwell to leave once Dominic Mackay is in post. I mean, he's obviously in the building, but once he's in post, we are expecting Peter Lawwell to leave. And I think that when the announcement was made, we all believed that to be the case. I'm going to ask the group here and everyone else who's tuning in on Twitter, Facebook and on YouTube, what if that doesn't happen? What if a completely different role is created at the club to keep Peter Lawwell there? Lawrence Conley, and I'll ask you first, what kind of a fallout do you think would be created by such a move?
listen, commercially, I think it'd be normal for someone of that level to stay on and give a longer handover. It depends what this new role looks like. If it's just to keep his contacts within the European Club Association, who knows? It depends how much reach he's got. Is he still going to be micromanaging every part of the club? I don't think anyone would want that. If he's on as a non-exec, I don't think that would be unexpected. If he stays on as chairman, that would be completely different, wouldn't it? It'd be really concerning. I think depending on his role, if it's kind of non-exec, I think that would be expected. Anything more would be worrying.
Well, you're right. It's really as a means, I think, certainly in part to retain positions on various other boards that he might have already. And then you think, right, okay, so would it be good to have someone fighting either Celtic's or Scottish football's corner on various other boards that he's involved in, or and I'm pretty sure Jim Orr will agree with this, do we need a clean break from Peter Lawwell and this overbearing kind of management style that he's had? But you do look at some of the deals, because we're trying to be as balanced as possible. Laura, I'll come to yourself. You look at some of the deals, particularly in the transfer market with the likes of Dembele, for example, Kieran Tierney, some say we were shortchanged on the Tierney deal. So, being able to recoup your transfer fee for Klamala, these are negotiations that Peter Lawwell has been involved in. So do you think that there might be a possibility that he will retain a position in some capacity?
Listen, I don't think the benefit that Peter Lawwell has given Celtic in terms of steadying the financial ship and getting us good deals for players both in and out of the club. He's definitely got skill in that department, and that shouldn't be underestimated, but I would be a hypocrite if I said anything other than I think we need a clean break from him, like you said before, because I've been pushing for it on all fronts, on the field, off the field, and that would extend to the boardroom. As far as things are concerned, I think given the way this season's going, given the way that everything was announced, it would be hypocritical of me to say anything other than that he needs to go, even if there are benefits to him staying, because as Lawrence has said, I'm not, or as Lawrence alluded to, I'm not entirely sure that he wouldn't get involved in situations and areas where he shouldn't be involved, because he's got a track record of having done that before. So as long as he's still in the club, you're in a situation where that's always likely to happen. So the best thing to do is for him to just go, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Just on that as well, I think the fact is, even if he wasn't, we would suspect he was. Yes. And that's already, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just a disaster.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I think that's something, because you build up sort of caricatures of people, do you know what I mean? And you get images of them, and there's no doubting that the image we seem to have in our head, myself, well, I'll speak for myself, right? But I mean, the image I've got is, he is a slight, control freak, you know what I mean? That is how I would describe it. And I think if decisions got made on, we missed out on a player, for example, in the summer, that was perhaps, let's say, for example, a Kevin Nisbet doesn't join and he goes to Birmingham City for 3 million, but Celtic bidded 2.5. That may well be that is all Eddie Howe was wanting to go to, if it's Eddie Howe in charge. But we're always going to be at the back of our head thinking that's got the hallmarks of the former CEO. So I mean, it's just, to me, it's a lose-lose situation, that one. It really is.
Yeah, the puppet master, talking of caricatures, that's exactly what comes into my mind. Russell, I'm going to run around the room and see what the predictions are for tonight, starting with yourself, Natasha. Celtic against Hibs.
I'm going to go for a Celtic win. I think it might be quite tight, so I'll go 2-0 Celtic. 2-0 Celtic.
Lawrence, how do you see tonight's game going?
Jacinta to make a scoring return, Mariah Lee to follow up a goal scoring form, and I'm going to go one better Natasha with a 3-0 win to the girls.
And can you try Jacinta's surname again?
No, mate. I've got to just quite out of my head.
Don't think you should be slagging off surnames, Paul.
You're right, Laura. You're absolutely. I've just been Bradburned.
Laura, if she scores, I will say it again.
Good man. Laura, what's your prediction for tonight?
Listen, I don't know much about the Hibs team, to be absolutely honest. So in sheer ignorance, I'll follow Natasha's lead. She's a lot more knowledgeable than me about it, and I'll say 2-0 as well.
2-0. And Russell?
3-1. 3-1 to the girls, definitely. I think there's goals in the team. I think Maya Lee will be full of confidence. I'd watched, as I say, I'd done like what Laura did, a wee bit of research before the last match, and Jacinta, Lawrence's favourite. I mean, she looked really, really tidy in the highlights. So I think that she's going to be a creative force in the middle, and Maya Lee to get a couple of goals tonight, I think.
Brilliant. Well, we'll be back at half time, so enjoy the first half, and thank you for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.